Let's talk about virtualization and a little bit about cloud. So virtualization basically is an abstraction layer software and between software and hardware. Basically, it's, I don't know if you guys watch The Matrix, but it's kind of like that concept of uh, Neo was approached by Morpheus, which was the guy, his mentor or whatnot, and said, you know, here's the blue pill. You go back to your normal life, pretending that this is real, but it's not, or you take the red pill and find out what the truth is. So, anyways, what the blue pill, what virtualization is basically giving an operating system of the blue pill. It's like, here, pretend that you are real, but you're not. All you are is really a bunch of files in a computer, right? So that's basically what that is. Now, the interesting thing is that there's actually a vulnerability for virtualization technology, which is called the red pill attack, which is basically you give the red pill to the operating system, and then he realizes that he's a virtual machine, and he's then starts talking to the hypervisor, and you know, all hell breaks loose after that. Anyways, that is also virtual LANs. They are used on virtualized environments, for obvious reasons. Basically, you're able to simulate network inside a hypervisor, and you can also add storage area networks to allocate network based disks as if they were local storage, but they're really not. Concepts to be aware: host, that's the actual physical machine. Virtual machine obviously is the guest or the operating system that you give the blue pill to. Hypervisor is an abstraction layer that runs the VM's applications and is also could be an operating system for the operating systems. That's another concept to look at. There are two types. There is the type 1, which is a bare metal. So bare metal directly installs itself on the host or the hardware of the machine, and not only serves an underlying operating system for the hardware, but it also serves as a hypervisor for the VMs. A couple of examples of type 1 hypervisors are the VMware ESXi and the Hyper-V, which Windows has. Actually, Windows 10, at least the professional edition, does have Hyper-V out of the box. You can actually enable that and have a bare metal hypervisor on your own computer. That's very good type. It's a pretty good type of hypervisor to have a bare metal hypervisor, because what it means is that your computer is not having to bypass an operating system. It's talking, the virtual machine is talking straight to the hardware in your computer. So equates more reliability, better communication, performance, and everything else. Type 2 is a software-based hypervisor. It's basically an application that you install on your operating system. It could be it's not that it doesn't bypass the operating system, but there are a few things that you could have enabled by the BIOS, provided that your processor supports it, which is the Intel VTX, which are technologies that live on your processor that will give you a better communication when it comes to the virtualization of this machine. It's still not as good as a bare metal, but improves a lot. It also allows you, having that enabled allows you to install 64-bit VMs. Otherwise, if you don't have virtualization enabled by the BIOS or UEFI, you will not be able to use 64-bit VMs. You're only going to be constrained to 32 bits. Anyways, going back to here. A few examples of the type 2 hypervisors are the VMware Workstation, as well as the Oracle VirtualBox. So virtualization, basically you have hypervisors that allow VMs to share host resources without affecting each other. They are isolated. Hypervisors also give the administrator control on how much resources you can share. So basically you have a CPU that has 4 cores, and you say, listen, for this virtual machine, use 1 core. Same thing goes with RAM. You have 16 gigs of RAM. You can tell for this machine use a max of 2 gigs of RAM. So whenever you boot up the machine, how much RAM you allocated for the virtual machine is going to be taken from your overall pool. So I have some virtual machines running right now. If you look at my task manager, you will see over here that I am running at, I have 32 gigs of RAM. However, in use are 12 gigs of RAM. I really don't have anything that is taking that much of my RAM. However, if you look at the VMs that I have boot up already, I have 3 of them. One of them is using a gig, the other one is using 4, another one is using 2. So they are being allocated already. So part of this 12 that you see here are the VMs that I have up right now. Another thing that you have with virtual machines on a hypervisor is the virtual network interface card, which operates like the real thing, even assigns a actual MAC address for your virtual machine, individual one. Benefits of virtualization, you have the ability to use different operating systems. So if you have a Windows box, you could have a Linux box inside of a VM, like I have. So if you look over here, I'm running a firewall operating system. So this is not possible with just one machine, right? Also, there are ways to run the Mac OS as well. I don't know if they have improved, but before you actually had to kind of hack the Mac OS, but on a Mac, you can install Windows VMs, no problem. Maintenance on the VMs, like updates, doesn't affect other VMs, is something individual per VM. Unless you have a network between them, but then you're talking about virtualized network, and it's a different type of updates we're talking about. Another thing is that you can take snapshots of a VMs. Basically, it's recorded, since they're all files. What the hypervisor does is look at all these files, right, and makes a copy of those files as they are right now, right? And this is a snapshot. So you continue, after the snapshot, you continue using the operating system unless you do something that it's bad for the operating system. And I don't know, a good example is if you are analyzing malware and you let a malware run on your operating system and it totally destroys the machine, you can go and click on the snapshot and have it right back up. So that's another thing that you can do. Very easy, super fast to go back to a previous state. VMs are easy to back up, again, because of that. It's relatively easy to change and upgrade hardware and hosts without affecting VMs. Now, I don't agree with that. This is something that actually was on the book, and I think is part of the objectives in the Comptia exam. However, I want you guys to understand is that's okay if it is a type 2 hypervisor, it's fine. If it is a type 1 hypervisor, in trying to upgrade hardware for the specific bare metal hypervisor, number one, there is only so much you can do, because you need to go through the manufacturer to find out what you can upgrade that is not going to affect the hypervisor itself. So let's say you're running ESXi version 5.5 and on some Dell Edge server that you have, and you're trying to change, I don't know, some RAM. You want to add some, I wouldn't say RAM, but change some stuff, like add some RAID controller or something. If the hypervisor doesn't support that hardware that you're trying to add, you're not going to be able to, obvious reasons. Another thing is, if the hypervisor supports ESXi version 5.5, but the manufacturer says, this is the last version that we support, we don't support anything more recent, you will not be able to upgrade to version 6.0 of the hypervisor. So that's another thing that you guys need to be aware, is that you really constrain to the manufacturer what you can upgrade on a hypervisor, unless it's a type 2, because that's your own computer, or a regular PC, a regular laptop, whatever, and then you can do whatever. But typically, when it comes to storage, it's fine. When it comes to RAM, if you have the room to upgrade and your motherboard supports that much RAM, you're typically okay to do it. But everything else on a hypervisor, I would really look at the manufacturer to find out if you can or not. Use of VM is very good for sandboxing security stuff like malware, as I just mentioned. As a matter of fact, all the malware sandboxes out there use hypervisors or some version of hypervisors, typically a type 2. Another thing that you can do is set up virtual desktop environments. Basically set up a hypervisor in a room. There's specific ones for that, of course. I believe Hyper-V actually supports VDI, which is virtual desktop infrastructure. And basically what you do is you give people thin clients, which we went over thin clients, the very low level type computers with very minimal hardware, just enough to connect somewhere. So basically they'll connect to a virtual desktop environment, and the computer is there being hosted on a hypervisor, right? That's where. So it is really a virtualized computer. Let's go to the next slide. What is the cloud? So by definition, the cloud is it has 5 elements of cloud computing service. They all must have on-demand self-service. That means that the customer should be able to access computing resources unilaterally and automatically. It should be very easy to start up whatever cloud service the provider has. It must have a broad network access, so the resources need to be available through a network standard format that allows everything to communicate, right? The client platform must be able to communicate with the resources that are being hosted on the cloud. And this means any sort of computer or mobile device should be able to access. Resource pooling, that means that a resource must be pooled and shared between multiple customers, which hence the multi-tenant environment. That means you have several customers, but they also need to be isolated, right? So I should not be able to access somebody else's files, but we can share the same hardware type of thing, right? So that's what resource pooling really is. Rapid elasticity, so you give the business the ability to grow and bring it down as needed. Let's see, they need a bunch of computers right away to do some calculations, and they're able to spin up on demand that environment. It's super easy to increase the number of resources that they need, and super easy to bring it back down as needed as well. All this really builds up to measured services, which is basically the way this is built is kind of like a utility, right? You pay for what you use, not for what you have, like an infrastructure. Like if you have a regular infrastructure in data center, you need to buy all the hardware. And when you buy the hardware, you need to think, am I going to need to scale up? Like, how much do I expect my business to grow? So you never buy the hardware for what you need at a precise moment. You buy looking ahead, maybe 5 to 10 years, to make sure that you don't need to change or swap, or if you do, very minimally, you're going to be swapping the hardware for something new. But you want to make sure that upgrades are not happening to the hardware for at least good 5 years, right? So you want to make sure that you scale up before you actually have the need. While on cloud, you scale as you need. So holiday season is busy. I'm gonna have more business, so my measured services bill are gonna be high. while after the holidays, it's not going to be because I don't expect as much business. That type of concept. Cloud models, you have the SaaS, which is software as a service. A good example for those would be Hotmail. Hotmail is a SaaS. Is a software that is really an application. It's an email application that you can use through a GUI. You don't need to do a lot. Basically, the user that is basically responsible for the configuration of it, what type of access you give in other people, that type of stuff. Platform as a service is basically when you have a certain tools available to a user, but the application itself, he is responsible for. Like, for example, a web server could be a platform as a service. So the provider will host the operating system that hosts the web server, and then you as the oops, somebody just arrived. So you, in the other hand, are responsible for the website that's going to be hosted on that server. So that's what a platform as a service is. It could also be a database, right? Maybe a MySQL database. You control the tables, you control what kind of data is going to go in the database, but who hosts the database itself would be the cloud provider. Infrastructure as a service is when basically the provider is doing hardware stuff, right? All the networking stuff is done on the provider side. You control from the operating system up. But remember also some aspects of the network you control as well. The provider is going to give you tools, right? So you can set up routing, so you can set up subnets, so you can set up all of this stuff. He's only really responsible for the physical aspect of that stuff, right? There are 4 types of cloud. You have the public cloud, which is available to the general public. Typically, it's paid, it's not free, but this would be what Amazon AWS is, or what Microsoft Azure is a public cloud provider. You have the private cloud, which is you use some, probably some open source technology out there, or proprietary or whatever, and you host your cloud in your data center. You have all the hardware, you manage everything, you set up a cloud for some stuff that you need done, right? And that's what a private cloud is. It's when you host a cloud service on premise. Community cloud is when you have a number of organizations sharing some cloud application together, right? That's what a community cloud is. A hybrid was when you have 2 or more of these models combined. So you have a private cloud, but you also use a public cloud to offload some of your stuff. Maybe you offload into the public cloud backups that are older than 180 days. So that will be a reason why you could be using a hybrid service.
Professor?
Yes, go ahead.
What would under what category would iCloud fall under? Like Apple's
iCloud. That's an Apple thing, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. What does iCloud do? I don't use Apple stuff.
It stores personal data, so like pictures,
storage,
audio, messages. Yes.
So it's storage. So
yes.
This would be a public cloud that will fall under SaaS, software as a service.
Got it.
Yeah. Same thing, Google Drive, same thing for OneDrive. That's what it is.
Okay.
Dropbox, it's another one.
Got it. Thank you.
No problem. So basically, whenever they provide you an application, right, that's software as a service. But you are responsible for who you give access to, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that's what the controls that are in place, or who is responsible if this happened, who's responsible if this other thing happened, right? The end user, I mean the customer in that situation is responsible for who he gives access to on whatever administration platform the provider provides. However, on the other hand, he is responsible in case that is an issue in his software that you are now able to access somebody else's account through a bug he has on his end. So now the cloud provider is responsible for that problem. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's more or less how that goes. Let's go back here. Okay, so use of the cloud. The main IIS usage, you likely so IIS usage will be like virtualization, right? So when you host like operating systems, kind of like you have an hypervisor with a bunch of VMs. That's what IIS is. SaaS would be what we just went over. Applications like Google Drive, Hotmail, or Office 365, and platforms as service will be if you are a developer typically and you are host, the host an application that allows you to host your application there, type of deal. So SaaS categories, they have desktop productivity tools, Google Apps, Office 365. You have database stuff for personal or corporate database. They have storage like Dropbox, OneDrive, Google Drive, iCloud. You have email. That's another SaaS category. Cloud apps introduce security risk on their own. In addition to what you already find on any network, you also have to use secure communication with the cloud service. Like any other online account, you could be hacked, right? That's another issue. They could steal your credentials and gain access to your data. You could access the web apps or shared devices. On shared devices, you need to be especially careful when you save. Like for example, I can go to a BC computer and get into my email there, right? But if I hit save on the desktop there, that means that on the Google Chrome there, and I didn't log in, just the standard one, somebody is able, one of the administrators at BC could get access to my profile and get a hold of my credentials, for example. This is something you need to be aware. Using cloud services for sensitive information means giving a lot of control of the handling of the handling to the entity that is hosting that service. So, and another thing I want to touch base with you guys here is when it comes to there's responsibilities, right? So if you happen to use public cloud like AWS, and it so happened that you provide, let's say you provide some service to a user, right? Which has, user has e-commerce business and he has a database with all his customers and he's using your service to host that database. And that is a lot of personal information in there. Let's see that is a breach, you as the customer, you are the person that your customers are going to sue, not your cloud provider. Even though the breach was in your cloud provider, they're going to sue you because you are ultimately responsible for their data, not the cloud provider. You can sue the cloud provider for the breach later, but when it comes to your actual customers that got that breach, you're responsible for it. Okay, so this is it for this slideshow. It was really small. Does anybody has any questions about this stuff?
No, sir.
All right,
I'm good.
So I'm gonna go ahead and close this. So we did 16, and I have some of our boxes on already. Yes. Let me open this guy too, just to we're not gonna do any Kali Linux exploits here. Just for I have some stuff in there. I want to show you guys. Okay, so here we're going to basically be using, so this environment, this is VirtualBox, right? So VirtualBox is a type 2 hypervisor. I also happen to have VMware Workstation as well. Let me open that guy up as well. This is also a type 2 hypervisor, right? We're not gonna do anything with this guy today. This is just so you guys, aware. They're different technologies, but roughly they do the same thing. The difference is that this guy is paid for, right? So the support is better, right? Also, if you are using this for game development, for example, and you need to do a lot of 3D rendering, VMware Workstations is going to do a far better job for you integrating with your video card and actually allow you to play games inside the VMs than VirtualBox will, even though VirtualBox does support 6.1 of VirtualBox. They are on version 6.1.16 at this time, which I don't recommend you guys install it because it's a little buggy. So this one is pretty solid still. 6.1.2 is pretty decent. So you can, when you go to the VMware website, go here, virtualbox.org. So when you click download 6.1 and you click on Windows host, like over here is gonna download the latest. However, if you're looking for something a little older, or you can go here, click on Windows host, and this will download the 6.0.24, which is a pretty solid version as well. And older builds, you can also go here. And this will give you all of those that you guys can download. This is good to know because sometimes, you might have maybe things were working when you had the 5.2 version, and now you upgraded your VirtualBox to 6.1, and now your VM is not working anymore. So you need to get the old one back up, right? So let's go now over how VirtualBox works. So you have the tool section. Here you can create a new virtual machine. So you put a name on it, right? Let's go Win10 install. So you can go over the Windows 10 installation. Type of OS, you can pick whichever. We're gonna pick Windows 10, 64-bit version. This is where I keep all my VMs, is in this folder, right? So you click next. You can set how much RAM you want to use. I'm just going to use the standard 2 gigs. You can go up and down here as you feel, as you please. Click next. You have options here to do things with the hard drive that you want on that VM. You can add a new virtual disk, which is what we're gonna do now. You can also use an existing disk. Now, when you use an existing disk, you will not be you will not be installing a VM. Typically, when you're using a disk, the virtual machine was already installed. You're basically transferring it over to a new virtual machine. So it's like a migration type of process. So we're gonna make a new one. We're gonna create. VDI is a pretty solid standard for VirtualBox, but you can also make in several different ones. I want to bring you guys attention to the VMDK. This is actually the VMware format. So if you're planning on transferring over to VMware, it would be good to have it on that format. Click next. Now, thing about storage here, you want to either fixed size. That means that if you set your hard drive on the VM for 50 gigs, it's going to take those 50 gigs right away. Now, if you make it dynamically allocated, you set the size for the VM to have a 50 gigs hard drive, but it is only going to tell the VM that it has those 50 gigs. It will not pull from your operating system until you have used those 50 gigs. So it's going to increase over time, but it's not going to pull right away. So this is good if you're just spinning up a box to test some stuff. If you need reliable storage that is not going to fluctuate, then you go for the fixed size. Click next. So here, the file location, this is what the hard drive is going to be called, and this is how much I'm setting, which is pretty standard. You click create, and that's basically it. You have the framework for the VM is there. Now we're going to go over settings. So you have several different settings here. This has to do with clipboard stuff. You can only use these things here once you install the actual VirtualBox drivers inside the VM. Same thing goes for VMware. They also have, they call it the VMware tools that you can install either as you install the operating system, it does it for you, or after you install the operating system, you can load those tools. And this will give not only things like that, like copy and paste from your desktop, right, and vice versa, but also is going to give you access to a better communication with your hardware. So especially displays, like if I just make a VM and you guys are going to see it, the screen is going to be kind of small. Once I install the guest editions to the VM, you will see that I'll be able to go maximize my screen, and it's going to scale up with the desktop automatically. So that's one a really good feature. You can also set up this encryption. We're not going to be doing that. System, for example, you can actually minimize the overhead of your VM by dropping some of this stuff. Like, for example, we're not going to be using the floppy drive, so you can just take it off, right? You can also set up some extended features here. They all have the explanations on what they do. You're free to look whenever you guys start playing with this on your own. Processors, same thing here. You can set up the number of cores. Remember, we're talking about giving the ability for the administrator to control that. This would be one way. So I'm giving 1 core to this VM. Acceleration, also something that honestly, I wouldn't play too much with this stuff from VirtualBox because it's really very, very basic as far as the things that work here. Some of the features work sometimes, don't work other times, depending on a patch that you receive, doesn't work that well. But if you have VMware Workstation, feel free to exploit all the features that they have, because I think all of them work. Like, for example, 3D acceleration here, I could enable it, but it doesn't work as intended, honestly. You can master the virtual memory for the video memory. You can set up to enable VirtualBox the VM with remote desktop protocol. That will give you the ability to remote in that VM. We're not going to be doing that. You can also set up recording. This is actually a pretty neat feature. Storage, you can add more hard drives here. Remember, we did that on when we went over the disk management tool. Sound, you can control, enable integration with your sound card or not. Networking, there are several levels here that you guys can use. You have NAT. That means that your hypervisor is doing a routing for you automatically. You have bridge. This is when you actually feeding off your NIC, your network interface card on that computer. So your host network interface card becomes your VMs as well. So don't recommend doing that. Internal network card, that's if you want to separate, you want to make a networking segregated, that only the VM has access to it, all the VMs on the same network. See, I have the lab network here. So all those hosts in the lab network can talk to each other. Another option here is host only adapter. That means only the host can talk to the VM. You have net network. This means that you're giving net and you're giving network capability so the VMs can talk to each other as well. Because if you just put net on that machine will be able to talk to the internet because of the host hypervisor, but it's not going to be able to talk to another VM that is right by it. So these are some of the options. You can enable serial ports if you have the hardware available. USBs also allow the VM to access your USB drives. You can share folders between host and VM, and some user interface stuff that you can customize. So that's basically it. Now, what we're going to do is I am going to go here. This is in storage. You're going to see a CD. This is the CD drive for this VM. So what we're going to do here, we're going to put a Windows 10. This is a Windows 10 CD into that. And let me see if this is check. No. Hot pluggable. You also see the virtual disk as a hot pluggable device. No, that's not it. So let's just load that in there and click OK, and let's boot that guy up. So it's actually asking me again. This is something, I don't know what happened on VirtualBox, but now it's doing this. It didn't do this before. So just select the right disk that you have and click start, and you should start booting the Windows installation. You see this gray space around it? This is the limitation that is giving me, right? Once I install the guest editions, I'll be able to maximize, and Windows is gonna be over here, it's gonna take over the screen. Let's click next, let's click install. So it's a very easy wizard to go through the installation. This is equivalent to a clean install of Windows that we're doing right now. So you have the license terms, you accept that, click next. You will not be doing an upgrade because this is not an upgrade. So you're gonna be doing custom install when you're doing a clean install. And you're gonna select the hard drive that is available within allocated space, or if you need to format the hard drive, you're gonna delete. You're gonna use this delete key here to delete all the volumes that you have. You're gonna format it, and then you're gonna select all the stuff that you formatted, and you're gonna click new. And you're gonna apply all the hard disk space in this case, all the disk space. We could leave some stuff on the side to do partitions later, but we're not going to. This is a very generic clean install of Windows. So we're gonna click apply. Ensure that Windows is gonna create its own partitions. I think it's 2 or 3 in total. Yeah, 2 in total. So that is the system reserved, and that is where you're gonna actually install the operating system, is this partition here, not the system reserved one. So click next, and Windows is gonna begin installing. It's very straightforward. We can go back to this in a little bit. And now we're going to go, let's open my Kali Linux box here. I think that's the password. Let's see. Maybe it's Kali. I haven't logged in this guy in a long time. There you go. That's what it was. All right, so this is my Kali Linux box. You guys are not gonna be, I'm not gonna be doing much here. The only thing I'm gonna be doing here is going to the web browser and going to, let me see what my firewall is. This is a firewall that I set up. And the interface is 192.168.1.1. This guy. Okay, so this is a firewall, an open source firewall called pfSense that you guys can obviously download and use. And I'm gonna show you guys that this guy is doing that. And he's also doing, has a one rule for that, for when. And what else? Another service that he's doing is actually, this is my DHCP server, right? For this box. This is pretty much the only things that this guy is doing. You can see here, he has two interfaces. It has the WAN and the LAN, right? LAN is the local area network. This is where my Linux box is talking to. This is where my two Windows boxes are talking to, and so on and so forth. Let me see what else. I got anything here? No, this is it. Those are the only two things. Let me see if I have the DNS forwarder. No. Yeah, that's all I have on this guy here. So it's pretty basic firewall. I don't think, do I have nets where we can go to this guy here. So this is a domain controller. I know we briefly talked about Active Directory, and we're gonna talk a little bit more as we talk about Windows. But I am using a core version of the Windows Server. That means that this guy here, it does not have a GUI per se, kind of like Windows has. Is just a what is it? Oops. Okay, so as you can see, all it is a command prompt, right? It has some utilities, of course, the same utilities that any command prompt has, but essentially everything is in this server will be done on the command line if I'm doing directly to it. However, I happen to have a Windows 10 box here, which graphic wise is looking a little funky. Why is it not using the guests? So this is supposed to be in place. I don't know why it's not using that. Well, let's see. Sometimes when you boot up, once you log in, things start working. And this is one of the things I meant about issues with VirtualBox that you don't encounter as much when you're using VMware. The integration of VMware is much more reliable because it's proprietary, right? So it has a more dedicated group of support. So I guess it's booting, and then that's done. Okay. Let's see here. It's not doing the auto resize. Okay. I think it's gonna do it now. It just recognized the VirtualBox drivers. You saw that this was no longer grayed out. So auto resize means I will resize the screen according to what my guest, what the host has, right? So you auto resize the guest display like that. There you go. That's much, much more friendly. So remember how we have it here, that Windows installation that you're installing here. You see, this is the size that it's going to be when it's done. While after you install the guest additions, this is the size that you have. Right? Big difference. So let's go back here to the installation one. So we can finish this out. So you're going to select the region. You're going to select the keyboard style, which is going to be US. That's if you want to add a second keyboard. I don't recommend it unless you have multiple languages that you want to be able to switch back and forth. That will be the only reason why people that do have to write in different languages sometimes do that. Okay, it's doing some setup. So I guess we'll go back to it in a little bit or not. Okay, let's stop that for a second. All right, so let's go and start with some of the system tools. So some ways to access those tools is going to the search bar. Another way would be if you use the Windows key on your keyboard and you type R, you can access the run menu, right? So this is before, whenever you wanted to run all of these tools, you actually have to do this. But now you can typically just search here and you get an answer a lot faster than if you just run it over here. Anyways, and it's easier. So let's see, the regedit, right? Regedit. So you can just search and it's already there. While if you go over here, you type it and it boots it, right? So regedit is where Windows settings live. You have settings for everything. If you look over here, let's go and pick one interesting. Internet Explorer. And let's see. Let's see, autocomplete clients. No, that's not a good one. It's about URLs. There you go. So these are options of what to do. So actually, I don't think this is a good one. Let's go and that is another one. Let's go back here. Local machine, software. I'm trying to remember that good location is Windows. Current version. Yeah, that's the one I wanted, I think. Oh. Microsoft Windows. Okay, let me just put it on Google. Oh, current versions. Yeah, that's the one. Okay. Internet settings. That's the one I wanted, guys. So you can actually configure some of the stuff here. Like if you go, for example, Internet Explorer, right? You look at the settings here, Internet options, right? So this stuff here, right, can be configured here. Like going to, let's see, cache. You can set up how your cleanup time is. You can set up cleanup intervals, all the good stuff. There are several things you can do here. You can set up your zones, you know. Of course, you gotta read documentations for all this stuff, so you don't make a mistake. However, this is a way to lock down settings via local or group policy, which is something that we're going to go over in a little bit. But this is something that Regedit does, is it gives you an ability to not just, I mean, because typically you are able to go here, right, and mess with the settings on a menu and change what you want them to do, but you can also go to Regedit and change it there, and it will reflect on the UI console for that specific application, right? And everything, all the settings in Windows are here. You can also make backups of this stuff. You can import it, and you can export it to export it to a backup file. You can get registry settings from the network somewhere that you set up on another computer and you want to copy it over. You can also import if you have a backup and you want to, let's see, something messed up, but you have the registry setting as they were like 2 days ago, and you know that they worked well. So you can import the backup that you had and restore those settings like that. Very important to make backups of your registry before you mess with it. Very important. Another thing, so next thing we're gonna go over is the command prompt. You can just type CMD here, or you can do that, Windows key R and try CMD here, and this should open the command prompt, right? That's the very basic CLI interface that Windows has. Another interface that Windows has is PowerShell, which is what Windows is going. It's little by little, more and more migrating to it. I think one day everything is going to be here. I think the command prompt eventually is going to fade away, but still very useful to use the command prompt for several applications. Another two is services. So these are all the services, basically all the applications that you have installed have services that live here. So you name it. Now, services, in here you can do stuff like, for example, starting a service, stopping a service, resuming a service, pausing it. You can set up how you want the service to start, if you want it to be automatically, if you want it to have a delay. You can also set up credentials to log for whenever that service starts, uses those specific credentials. I remember messing with Microsoft SQL database manager, and I remember that I actually had to set up a specific user whenever logging in with that service. So that was interesting, something that I had to do here. I can do there are some recovery options here that you guys have. And also dependencies. Sometimes it depends on other services to start. So you may have a service that for this service to start, this other service needs to start. So those are things that you can set up. This is why services is useful. Let's look for another one. So this guy, MMC. I don't know if can I get it to here? No, I can't. But if I try MMC on this guy, I have I'm given this console. Now this is something that was added on Windows 7. This is for you to make yourself like a toolbox of snippets. I don't know if you guys remember, what was it? Computer Manager. If we right click here, we can go there, computer management. There are several, this is an MMC console, right? That has several snippets here, right, to the left. And you can actually add new stuff here. So what was it? New window here, file, action. Trying to remember how to get the snippets here. New task. Nope, that's not it. Cool. There you go, new task. Never mind. Let's go. Okay, add and remove snippets. Damn, that was obvious. So these are the snippets that you have, and you can go ahead and add. Let's see, I have ability to administer the domain controller that I created through here. So what I can do here is add all the Active Directory stuff on that server. DNS is part of it as well. Group policy. And that's pretty good. So I can go and click OK. Oops, there's something going on with trust on my domain. But anyways, that's something else. So if you can see here, I have all these tools here for my domain controller for me to administer as I see fit. So instead of actually opening those applications, I can just use this console. I can name this console and I can save this console on my desktop. And I can name AD tools, right? And from now on, I can just go here and I have all these tools here. Obviously, I'm having issues, but this is something else. There you go. I can access those tools here. Okay, so another thing that we have is the MSTSC. Now you can access that through here. Basically that's remote desktop connection. Now, in truth, I know you guys are probably asking, but MSTSC, really? Well, what that means really is before RDP became a thing, remote desktop became a thing, Microsoft used to call it terminal services. So MS, Microsoft TC services, terminal services connection. That's really what that stands for. And that's why it brings it up to this, right? Which is the remote desktop connection console. Now you can also use that key, Windows key R, MSTSC, and it opens that back up as well. That's another way to get in. You know what happened here? Why this guy's shutting down? And I'm gonna explain to you guys. I don't know if you guys saw it, but the evaluation version had expired. So this is why this guy is doing this right now. Is shutting down because the evaluation expired. Now that is a way to rearm, and we're gonna go through that right now because I want you guys to be aware that you guys can do that. Let me just open a new tab. Windows 10, Windows 10, rearm trial. Here you go. We're gonna go to the command prompt and we're gonna type this here, rearm. And this is gonna give me another 300, what is it, 240 days maybe? Something like that. So let's go ahead and go back to the VM that is booting. And let's rearm this trial. It's good that this happened now because you guys can see what happens if you don't activate your Windows copy down the road. Now I have this machine for way more than 90 days. So, and that's, it didn't start with, I think it was after the 6 months mark, that's when it started being a little fidgety like this. I wonder if this server is having issues as well. Let's see. No, still there. Still working. Okay, so let's go to this command prompt, CMD. Now, another thing that I urge you sometimes to do is whenever you are booting, run as administrator. This will give you access to do things on the command prompt that you wouldn't be able to do it unless you're running administrator. And to know if you're running as an administrator, you will see the select administrator right here on the title menu. So let's go ahead and type the command there, which is SL manager, SL manager, rearm. Oops, it doesn't have it. So I gotta do something else. Oh, that's for Windows 7. I'm looking for Windows 10. Okay. There you go. Command successfully completed. Please restart the system to take effect. So once we reboot, you guys are gonna notice that this license expire here is gonna disappear. So restart, and we should be good to go after this. Let's go back to the Windows that we're installing. So now, as you can see, we're prompted with this. Most people, whenever they set up their Windows box, they start doing all this Microsoft account thing because, you know, it's pretty neat. It gives you a lot of, like you basically authenticate with your Microsoft account. Or if you wish to join a domain instead, or if you want to keep the local user as account without linking with your email account, this would be the route you do. Now, you can only do this if your Windows is not the home edition. If it is home edition, you have to go through this. So let's go there. I really don't care about these, so I'm just putting random answer. There you go. So it's going to continue to install here. So let's go back to this guy. And you guys should be able to see. Oh, I know why this guy is not talking to the Active Directory service. I'll tell you guys in a bit. Okay, it's booting. So while it's booting, let me just show you guys what's happening here. So I actually use this host for several things. If you see here on the network adapter, this is set for NAT. That means that he's not talking to any virtual machine at this time. He's only talking to the internet. I'll have to switch this guy to internal network, my lab network, for this guy to be able to talk to my Active Directory service. If I click OK here now, it's going to do a swap at some point. And I should be able to access this MMC console. Now that it's back up, if you look, it changed to the actual domain. And oh, I'm having issues with the password. Let me log out. Remember, I changed the password on the domain controller because it was expired. So I have to log in again. Password is new. So now I should be able to access all the domain controller tools. There you go. So if I open the MMC now, I shouldn't have any errors like I had before. There you go. So if you see here, I can actually access the domain. So this is the domain. This is user accounts. These are the computers in the domain. This is the domain controller that I have in the domain, all that. So this allows me to use the MMC tools that I created here. I can access the DNS on that as well. I'll have to specify. So this is the domain controller as well. It has its domain forward lookup zones. If you go here, these are everything that the domain controller is resolving. This is a domain, what a DNS pretty much looks like at a glance. I have conditional forwarders, which are not here. Let's see. Oh, forwarders. So if this machine is not able to resolve, he attempts resolving through Google, right? So if this guy is not able to resolve, like for example, he's trying to go to google.com, I'm not hosting that. I'm not the name service for that. So he's gonna do all that, shebang, going to the top domain, to the root domain, to the top domains, and all that. And then, but it's going to go essentially to, he's gonna use the Google DNS server to do that resolving, right? Okay. So let's close this guy. Now you guys know what that, that thing works. And as you can see here, now my license is valid for another 90 days. So next in the list is Notepad. It's a text editor. That's all you need to know. It's very basic text editor in a sense that it has no formatting whatsoever. And that's very beneficial if you're looking at some code that you're trying to make it work and do some quick troubleshooting. Because if you cannot use Word and open Python script in there, it's not gonna work. Right? But you can use Notepad for that. Let's look at the Explorer. So this is Explorer, File Explorer or Windows Explorer, whatever you want to call it. As well, the file, directly you're able to see all the files and directories in there. There are other things you can do here, such as mapping drives and change the way you view things, allowing you to see hidden files and stuff like that. That's what Explorer is. That is the DXDAG, which is, we actually went over this. This is for looking into your sound card or multimedia stuff, display, and actually seeing that if you're having issues or not. As you can see, I'm actually having issues with my display, right? And because this guy is not digitally signed, I'm having issues with it. Right? That's my problem here for VirtualBox. We can use defrag, the defrag tool, that is a command line tool that you can use. And if I go here in the command prompt and I type defrag, you guys will see something very quickly pop on the screen because this is a command, right? So this is defrag. It gave me like a little help file, right? And some of the options or how I can do defrag on the command line. I cannot, however, do this here. If I go on Windows and R to execute, I cannot do defrag because essentially, because it's a command tool, that's exactly what it's going to do. And then it's going to exit out. Look, that's it, right? So you can never run a command tool like that. You need to actually go to the, if it is a command CLI tool, you need to go to the command prompt to execute. Anyways, let's go to defrag again on search. You actually have the GUI version, right? This is the GUI version that you can do the fragmentation. We're not gonna do that because, I mean, it's not really needed. This is a VM, honestly. What can you do, right? But this is what defrag is. You typically don't have, as remember when we're talking about storage, the only time you need to use defrag is if you are on a mechanical drive. Actually use an SSD on this laptop, so it's not gonna be an issue. Another reason why would be if you actually want to you have a mechanical drive, and you actually you're running on an older operating system that doesn't have this scheduled as Windows 10 does. I've actually ever since I believe Windows 7, Windows has been scheduling the frags from time to time, is running on the background from time to time. So it's really not needed unless for some reason you open it up and you're noticing some slowdowns and you see that it's fragmented. Then you might actually have some other problems on your operating system by that point. Another tool that we can use is the restoration tool, which restores computers to an earlier state. It's RS Chewy. There you go. This guy. So I don't have the protection turned on. I'll actually have to do that and turn this guy on. And I can make a restore point right now. Name it first. Now, on a VM perspective, this is something that, I mean, why would I do that? Because I can just go here, right click, and I can, actually not here, I can go here and I can take a snapshot. There you go, snapshot one. There you go. So if I want to go back to early state, let's see I start running into some problems 3 days from now, I can just go ahead and go back to the snapshot and click on, what does it show? What is it? There should be an option here for me to restore. I don't know why it's not letting me. Okay. Well, I have other machines that I did it. So let's take another one. I think I need to have two. No, it doesn't let me go back. That's interesting. Huh. And I can make a clone out of it. Anyways, I have this machine here. So if you look here, I actually restore these. You can actually restore them to different states that you have, right? Before the latest change. So anyways, going back here. So we did a restore. So if you go back here now and you go to the RS Chewy, you'll see that my restore there, and I can go next and so on and so forth and do the whole restoration, which we're not going to do it right now, but that's one thing you guys can do with it. Windows updates, you can just type Windows update settings, or you can go and type WUAPP. And that's the Windows Update Services. Now this is gonna, obviously it's not gonna, I don't think this is gonna work because everything is very limited. Well, I actually have a quality update right here for October, which I could install, but it gives you several things that you can do here. You can change active hours, automatically adjust how you want your updates to proceed. You can change this, put on a schedule. You can turn this on and off. I have it off because this is a test machine. I really don't want to be updating stuff here. You can review update history. You can see all the updates that were installed in this machine. You can uninstall an update, as you saw there. You can download and install this specific update manually. You can pause updates, and I have some advanced options here. Receive updates from Microsoft products, download updates over metric connections, and several other things here. So pause updates for a period of time, so how many days you want to pause it for. You can have some delivery optimizations. You can also set some settings here. Another thing is you may have you may be using something called the WSUS, which stands for Windows Update Services. This would be on a Windows service hosted by a Windows Service box. And that point is your Windows updates are not coming from Microsoft. That box is getting the updates from Microsoft and deploying across your network. Okay, so Windows Update Services, we're done here. So next. Over updates, there are a few types of updates. You have the general updates, which is general fixes. You have the security patches, which are patches for security vulnerabilities. You have application updates, which are specific to applications that you have. And service pack, which is a combination of several updates put together over a period of time. That's what a service pack is. You have feature updates, which is when you have some cumulative updates plus some feature changes that come into updates as well. But it's a must to at least keep up with your security updates. You definitely want to do that. And let's go to another tool called MS config. There you go. So this guy here is responsible for your startup selection. You can have a normal startup. You can use a diagnostic startup, which it starts with basic devices and services only. You can have a more selective startup, which only loads boot configuration in the case here. You can start up with only system services, right? That kind of stuff. You can also set up how to boot your operating system. This will allow you to select what level of safe boot that you want to use. This is something very useful if you have any issues with Windows and you're not able to boot it to Windows 10, something is happening and your operating system is not loading. You could try doing a safe boot booting into safe mode. That's what it's called. You can use the minimal, which has some drivers, some Windows GUI stuff. You can use just this shell itself. You can use an Active Directory repair mode. In this case, because I have Active Directory installed, and you can enable networking. So safe mode, typically networking is disabled, but you can actually have a mode that it has networking. There are also some other features that you can have enabled here. These are the features, and so on and so forth. There are some advanced options as well that you can enable, but this is a little bit beyond the scope of this course. Services, you can control services that are running. You can disable services from booting up. All these services that are selected here, they'll run or ran whenever Windows could have started, but if I disable them here, they will not, they will all have to be manually started once Windows starts. You have startup, which can actually go to the task manager and you can control all the applications. Now, these are not services, these are actual applications that boot up whenever Windows start. As you can see, I have some that are enabled, some that are disabled. For example, guest editions, obviously I want that enabled in this box, but I don't need Skype enabled, but I could enable Skype, but it's disabled right now. Users, you can see the users that are using and what kind of resources they're pulling from the system. So if you notice your RAM is low, but you know you're not doing a lot of RAM queries and you're sharing this machine with other people, right? You can go and look at other users that may be taking away of RAM and be like, hey, you have this application here that Is high on memory? Can you go turn it off, or do you need it running, or should I come back later? Type of stuff. You can also log these people out if you are an administrator, right? You can log them out. You can also manage the user accounts. You have some details on, but this is test manager. We get enough task here. Let's go back to this guy here. Tools. There are some tools here you have some access to by using the system configuration. And you can launch them, like this guy from Internet Explorer. And that's it. Exit without restarting. We're not gonna restart. Okay, so let's next on the list, administration tools. So you can add access administration tools by admin, Windows administrator tools, like right here. Or you can I believe via command prompt. Oh, control panel. You can go to the control panel and access them through, I think they are here on the systems and security. Yeah, they're here. And access them here. So these are the administration tools. Obviously, I have a little bit more than the book covers because I have Active Directory running on this box. But some of the administration tools is component and services. This is something you guys are probably not going to touch. This is developer thing. Basically, it allows you to object sharing between applications and databases. I have the computer management. This is very useful for you guys because it has all these other tools here, such as the task scheduler. So you see all the tasks that Windows is running on the background or scheduled to run on the background, right? Or you can set tasks. You can actually create tasks here. You can access Event Viewer to view all the events that are going on with Windows. You can open share folders. You can access your local users. You can take a look at performance, the performance monitor. You can access the device manager and this management tool, which we already went over this one. And services. And then the WMI control, which configures and controls Windows Management Instrumentation service. This is something that is beyond the scope of this course, so we're not going to talk about it. Okay, continue here. Defrag, we have this cleanup. It's another tool you can use to troubleshoot stuff. It cleanups cache and stuff like that, some temporary files for you. If you're noticing you have some space issues, you might have to do a this cleanup. This is not part of your regular administrative tools. I have Event Viewer, which is the best troubleshooting friend you can possibly have, which is also part of the computer management tools. You have the iSCSI initiator. This is to connect iSCSI targets, right? We have the local security policy. Now, if you don't have a group policy domain, I mean, a group policy because you don't have a domain controller or anything like that, you can actually set up the same policies you can set up in group policy here on the local policy. Like you can set up auditing policies. So log every logon event, every success of failures. And basically more concerned with failures, people trying to brute force a password, right? That'll be one of the things you could do. Azure services, not a concern here. Also not a concern here. Data sources, ODBC data sources. These are basically database driver data sources, or which you guys are unlikely to use. Performance monitor, definitely useful to track and analyze the performance of your computer. You can actually collect data on how your computer is running. As you can see here, oops, I have the processor. You can look at all the data collectors that you may have, system diagnostics, look at processor. You see all the data, how it's being captured. So you can add all this stuff here too. Let's see. They have RAM. Should be on the memory, no? Memory. Memory. That's another counter that we can add. And now we have everything that's going on in memory. And we can look at how things are going and help pinpoint what the problem may be, right? So this is what a performance monitor is. It's when you're actually actively trying to figure out what things are doing. Maybe you suspect a program, software is doing this. So you start tracking on what is actually doing to your hardware to see if it could be that program, in fact. Right? Let's go back here to this guy. Another one for you guys to look at is the print and management service. This is where printers are set up, and we don't have any printers set up because this is a virtual environment. But this is where you'll be managing your printers, especially sharing them as well with other computers. Like you will load drivers here, and we allow those drivers to be pulled by other computers on the network to access them. Services, that's another one here. We also have registry editor, which we already went over. Resource monitor, that's another interesting one. It's kind of like the task manager, but it gives you a little bit of more information. Like you can actually track individual applications as they go. Same thing for the disk. What is writing? What is how my I/O is going? Network. Same thing. But you need to make sure that you have the right things being cut. If you see all of it, you can see what everybody's doing. Single out just the CPU, just the memory, just the disk activity, look a little bit more in storage, and so on and so forth. Server manager, we're not going to touch that. This is for Windows Server environments. Services, we went over services already. System configuration, we went over this guy. That's the MS config guy, right? System information, that's to get some high level information of your operating system. I mean your computer itself. It gives you all kinds of stuff here, right? It's very, very, very detailed on the information that you can get here. It also gives you some hardware stuff, conflicts that you may have, your DMA channels, any force hardware, how your I/O are operating, input output, your IRQs, memory. You can look at components as well. Okay, your multimedia codecs that you may have. So this is some pretty useful information. Task scheduler, you know, scheduling tasks. Also, that is the Windows firewall. This is a software-based firewall. You can actually use this to disallow stuff. Typically, if you are these firewalls, they have these locators associated with them. If you are on a domain, you have a certain profile set by Windows, and some things are blocked. If you're on a private network, it's a little bit more open. But if you're on a public network, a lot of this stuff gets locked down. I don't know if you guys are familiar with, but whenever you go to, if you go to a, whatchamacallit, One second. I'll answer you in 1 second, Adam. So if you go to like a coffee bar, a coffee shop like Starbucks or whatever, they have free Wi-Fi, and you put your computer on the Wi-Fi there, you get typically there is this thing on Windows that pops up and asks you, are you on a work network? Are you on a private network? On a public network? When you put public, it blocks people from on a firewall level from accessing your computer. So it's a good feature that they have. So your question is, if you suspend the process on the resource monitor, would it be bad for the computer, like OneDrive? This is a software-based firewall. You can actually use this to disallow stuff. Typically, if you are these firewalls, they have these locators associated with them. If you are on a domain, you have a certain profile set by Windows, and some things are blocked. If you're on a private network, it's a little bit more open. But if you're on a public network, a lot of this stuff gets locked down. I don't know if you guys are familiar with, but whenever you go to, if you go to a, whatchamacallit, 1 second. I'll answer you in 1 second, Adam. So if you go to like a coffee bar, a coffee shop like Starbucks or whatever, they have free Wi-Fi, and you put your computer on the Wi-Fi there, you get typically there is this thing on Windows that pops up and asks you, are you on a work network? Are you on a private network? On a public network? When you put public, it blocks people from on a firewall level from accessing your computer. So it's a good feature that they have. So your question is, if you suspend the process on the resource monitor, would it be bad for the computer, like OneDrive? Well, it will only affect OneDrive. So what is it? Performance monitor, you said? Oh, resource monitor. Resource monitor. Oh, this is just a monitor though. So I don't think you can stop anything. You can. Oh yeah, you can. So you can not only add a process, you can actually end the process tree as well. This is the same as going to the task manager, right? And doing it over here as well. You ending a task, right? Now, it's not bad for the computer per se, unless you are stopping this guy. If you stop Windows Explorer, what happens is that this whole shebang GUI goes away, and you need to restart that process. Typically, it starts back up automatically. But if sometimes you actually have to go back in the task manager and actually kick off the process again. I think is one of these options here. I forgot which, but you should be able to. Yeah, I think it's on open services. You should be able to kick it off. Oh no, run new task. That's what that is. So you should be able to kick off the Explorer back up again. But no, it's not bad for the computer. It's bad for the application though. If you are using OneDrive, and OneDrive is supposed to sync with the internet, when you stop the OneDrive process, you stop in the communication. So if you happen to have some file in transit still, like going to your OneDrive, and you so happen to stop that service, it's not, OneDrive is not going to have that file there, or it's going to have a corrupt version of that file there. So you probably going to have to kick it back up again and try to send the file again, and maybe do some troubleshooting on that file. You know, on the OneDrive copy, your local copy should be fine. Okay, another one is the Windows memory diagnostic thing, which I'm not gonna kick it off, but basically test the computer memory for issues. Some other tools, as mentioned, if you click Control-Shift-Escape, you should open Test Manager. Another way to get to that is right-clicking on the taskbar and going to Test Manager. or you can, Control Delete, and you have an option to go into Task Manager. Is You have the processes field, which gives you some data about the processes. You can sort them back and forth to see who's using the most CPU, who's using the most RAM. You can stop services here. You can end tasks. You can set how those values are displayed. There are several things. You can do some debugging as well on them. Let's see. Let's click this guy here. You can do some debugging on some of them, not all of them, obviously. You can create dump files. Dump files basically it gives you. Let's see if we can create one here. Basically gives you all that's going on in the background with the application. So if we open the dump file, did it open? I don't even know what is saved. But anyways, typically you have it's saved somewhere. Documents maybe. Downloads. Oh. Let's do it again. That went too fast. Let's create a dump file. So basically, it's looking at all the underlining things that process is doing. Open file location there. Here you go. So you can use Notepad for this. I think it's big. For Notepad to be not responding, it's probably a big file. I mean, big for Notepad perspective, like a lot of lines. Oh, something happened with the screen. Hold on. All right, can you guys see it now? You should be back up now.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, that was a screen issue there. So anyways, we're going over the test manager here, right? And if you right click, one of the options is to create a dump file. Dump file basically is information about the process ongoing, right? Let's say you're trying to troubleshoot a problem with the application. This would be a way to troubleshoot that problem. You create a dump file with all the calls to memory, all the calls in a low level type of stuff. So as you can see here, this is the dump file for a service. That is a lot of mumbo jumbo here that you guys probably don't make any sense of it. But if you know what you're looking for, you'll definitely be able to find it, what happened, what was going on that was wrong. Some of the stuff is readable, most of the stuff is not. But as you can see, like you can see some of the stuff kind of like not authorized, so maybe you have any issues here. This is the type of stuff you're looking for when you create a dump file. Let's close here. Next on the list is the Windows Update Advisor and Upgrade Assistant. I'm not gonna download this, guys. I'm just gonna briefly talk about it. Basically, if you're trying to update Windows 7 to Windows 10, you can download Windows Update Advisor or Upgrades Assistant. And basically what that does is it looks into your hardware, right? And see if it is compatible with Windows 10, the new version. And it lets you know, it gives you a bunch of green check marks or red check mark in there, things that you may have to do to update. Also, it lets you know if you're on the right path to update, if you can do from Windows 7 to 10. For example, if you run Windows 8, you need to upgrade to Windows 8.1 before you can go to Windows 10, right? User state migration, that's another one that I'm just going to briefly touch here. This is a tool that allows you to move basically user profile related files, right? You can move the guy's documents, some of the settings that he may set up on his profile and stuff like that. And all this that you're moving really I mean, it could be other files, but typically, if you go over here, I have this profile will, and it's going to be basically these guys here plus uh, some hidden stuff like the NT user data, right? That kind of stuff that's going to be moving. So this is useful to move if you're moving from computer to computer, type of stuff. I used it before and it works pretty well. Disk part. So let's go over this part. This part basically allows you to manage disks and partition on a command line level. Instead of going to this guy here, this guy, right? You can use this part to do that. So if you go to CMD, run as administrator, of course, and you go this part to get into this part, and then you go list disk, you'll see all the disks that I have. So this 0, this is my hard drive, right? The one that Windows is running, but this 1, 2, and 3, if we go back here, no, not this guy, let's go with this guy, we don't need this anymore. But if you go to this manager, let's just go to what we know it is, computer management. So if you go here, you'll see that I have, in fact, these guys, 3 disks, right? And you can go and select one of those. Select disk 1. So now that's the disk that's active. And now what I can do is I can detail the disk to see the information on the disk. Right? It tells me it's a SATA drive, all that good stuff, where it's pointing, and yada yada. I can also go, right, and I can create a partition. Create partition. Primary size. See megs 51. Well, let's make it 500 MB. Cool. Something's wrong here. The arguments specified for this command are not valid. It's create partition. Create partition. Oh, size equals. Missed that. Oops, still wrong. What? So create a partition, and now I can assign a letter. Equals H or not. Oh, I misspelled it here. Again, misspelled. All right, aside. Letter equals H. Hey. So as you can see here, I already have a H drive is showing up. The next thing we need to do is format that partition. We're gonna set up an FS, which is the file system that we want, which is gonna be NTFS, and make it a quick formatting. All right, it's formatted. And now what we can do is go into this guy here And you guys are gonna see that is a new partition of 500 megs right here. That's the partition we just made. And if you go back on Windows Explorer, you'll see that now we have an H drive with 500 megs. There you go. So that's a way to use this part. Now, this is super useful if you are trying to make bootable USB flash drives and you're trying to have a specific size on the partition in order to load the ISO file in it, which is typically 4 gigs. So if you have a big flash drive in there, you might actually have to do a partition for your ISO in there, right? So it's super useful. Also, dividing your flash drive for different functions, right? Maybe you have an operating system that runs, and then you have a bunch of diagnostic tools in another partition. That's another way to do it. So this is this part. Format, we just went over that basically. There's a little variation if you run it on a command line, but it's no big deal. You guys can totally look this up on. I have a slideshow from UCertify, and they have a list of how to run the string. Control panel. So control panel, and also Windows 10 has the settings Metro app, which walk hand in hand here. So everything that you'll find here, you'll find a version on the control panel. The difference is that, and we went over this before, is the applets, right? You have the little applets here. Some people feel more comfortable using them, and some people prefer to use the new stuff, right? That Windows 10 has. Now, another thing is if you're working with group policy, just keep in mind that if you're trying to restrict access to users on an element that they can do something on the control panel, you will also have to restrict the access on the Windows settings as well. So you guys know. Device manager. So go to device manager. Under hardware, should be here. Device manager. So this is where you go to troubleshoot hardware problems. Let's say you just updated a graphics card. This would be under display something, display adapters, right? This would be a video card. So if you right click here, right, you could go into properties. And if you had just updated and you need to do a rollback on that drive, you click on drive and you click rollback, right? You can also do updates via here, although it's not recommended. I recommend that you actually use the manufacturer software for that, but that'll be another option. You may have to install the device for some reason as well. That's another thing. Maybe you remove the device, but the device is still showing here, and you want to just remove from the get-go. Just go over here and remove that. Let's look at remote settings. This will be under network and internet sharing center. I think. Let's try here. Remote desktop settings. So you can enable remote desktop. If you enable remote desktop, people can remote access your computer. Remote settings. So you actually have the options here to either establish a connection, or let's go ahead, remote. Allow access to this computer, allow remote assistance invitations from this computer, or select users who can remote access this computer. So if you click here, you'll see that you can actually select individual users that will be able to remote access this computer. This would be useful if you have, a domain and that is a specific box that you want to have some users that are not administrators access to go work on that box remotely. Devices and printers. Go back here. Control panel. Oh, here you go. Devices and printers. So this not only shows printers, but it also shows USB and Bluetooth devices as well. So if sometimes you may need to troubleshoot them through here, clicking on properties, you can have some more detailed information about them, about their drivers, and it may be some options that they may have to use it from here, not merely just here. So, you know, like I have a Bluetooth thing that if I go and I mess with it here, right? Oops, you guys cannot see it. Hold on. It's not showing. It's the sound signs they're showing. Oh, okay, you can mess with it here, but I find that if I go on actual device, uh, print as a device, whatever, and I access it through here somewhere, there you go, and access it through here, I'm actually able to troubleshoot a lot better than if I am accessing the sound, just the sound stuff, right? So this is one thing. What else? System protection. And so what time is it? We have 5 minutes. So let's just go over there real quick. System protection, control panel, system and security. I don't think it's here. I think this is a Windows setting thing. So system protection. Not really. Okay. So system protection, I guess, is here. Protection. Okay. Well, it's really firewall, guys. I thought they had a different widget for this, but no, it's firewalls. This is it. It's like going through the firewalls, setting up rules to allow or not allow things to work in whatever location ID you may have. Another thing that we have is the advanced settings. Let's go back to the control panel. And this guy here, click on system, advanced settings. Oh no, it's here. Sorry guys. So system protection. Protection? Yeah. System protection. So yeah, it's a system restore. That's why Windows 10 was actually smart to me, huh? So that's what that's for. It's for a system restore. Advanced settings, on the other hand, is responsible for your visual effects. You can adjust for better performance. You can adjust for better appearance. You can let Windows choose, or you can minimize some of this stuff. Like maybe you don't want to have enable peak. That's when you go over this and you see that thumbnail on top, right? Maybe you don't want to see that. So this takes away from resources, right? That Windows is using. So it's going to be less RAM, less CPU power that Windows is using. You have some other, you can set up your virtual memory here. This is equates to page file. That's what this is. You can set up the size. Basically, it's whenever RAM is all the way to 100%, how much can I get from my hard drive to throw stuff in there as if it was RAM? That's what a page file is. In Linux, this would be the swap file. Data execution prevention, you can set some rules here to prevent some stuff from executing. We had set up some startup and options here. Some rules on system fails, write an event to system log, you know, that kind of stuff. That's what advanced features are for. You can also set up environmental variables. That means if you run this environmental variable here, temp, then Windows knows that temp you're referring to is C:/Windows/temp. So this is very useful for coders because they can set up environmental variables on their code to feed off some of these that you already have set up here. So this so that it's very useful. For example, that is an environmental variable, I believe is computer name. I don't know if I can run here. Let's open the command prompt real quick. CMD. I think is computer name. Yeah, there you go. So this is the computer name. So even though it didn't recognize the command that I'm operating, recognizes the environmental variable. So you can send this off to another command. So you type a command, you run the environmental variable, and then it's going to pull when1 into that command instead of you having to type. This is good for scripting, very useful for scripting. So we're going to cut this off here. We have several things to go over Windows still. If you guys look at the map that I have there, we still have several sections to go over. It is a very lengthy subject. That's why I decided to do it in a live format versus slideshows. I mean, each slideshow from UCertify was 80 slides, just their slideshows, not my custom ones, their slideshows. So yeah, it's pretty intense. So what I'm gonna do is, like I said, over the weekend, I'm going to record chapter 17, 18, 19, 20 over this week and put it on the YouTube page. Also, chapter 14 is gonna be coming up in a one of those formats as well. Chapter 15, chapter 10, we doing in this Windows Lab because both Windows tools, basically. If you don't see it on the operating system, I mean, it's not really useful for me to show on a slideshow. I really don't think it's a good format. We ended up not finishing the install of the Windows 10, did we? Okay, yeah, it kind of finished solid. Let me just finish this up so you guys have it on record. So these are privacy settings. You can enable or disable them as well. Just gonna give it an enable so you can move on with this installation. Do more across devices to have activity history. Activity history is this here, guys. It's for you to go back to a previous time. So it's actually a pretty useful feature. It's something that it's been out for a bit, and they just added to Windows. So just click yes. Do you want to let Cortana do things for you? No, I don't, because I find it annoying. And now it's just gonna set up things in the background, and once that's done, Windows should be booting up. So it's pretty